over to the creating paranormal images thread on Something Awful. It told me to read about this new creation, Slenderman, which had only been out for maybe a week at the time. And you know, people had been doing pictures and stories and audio stuff, but no one had done video. And Troy was like, well, I'm gonna put my degree to use. And we spent about 9 hours that first night storyboarding just on some little 3x5 note cards about what we wanted the story to be. And initially it was basically just a collection of cool ideas, we thought. Like, what would this shot be? And no thought of how far
the story, yeah.
And that's how Marble Hornets started out. That worked.
So really,
for
you could boil it down to it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
That worked for season 1. It definitely did, but it has caused problems later in the series. But we'll get to that one. You know, we started this panel because we were invited to a little campus film festival, and they wanted us to do a master class. So we should.
Did you do air quotes for that?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good.
And it should be noted that we are not masters of anything, let alone of making films.
What's the rule? 10,000 hours?
10,000 hours of dedicated practice to become a master of anything.
What are many hours you put on Marble Hornets?
Not quite that many.
Not quite that many. No.
So take everything we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah. There is a joke on the PowerPoint for that, but you can't see it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny though.
It's a guy eating grains of salt off of a plate.
Yeah, we already did that.
You already did this. Okay.
We can keep on going.
Got that too?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
This is really interesting stuff
Yep.
we're looking at.
Yep.
There you go.
So, in terms of writing, like I said, with season 1, we definitely, it was, how do I say this and sound important? Free form. It was a mess, basically.
Yeah. Well, it was a mess on purpose.
Yeah. We
didn't really find out it was a mess until later. At the time,
Right.
it was just like, hey, let's make another creepy video.
So we had, I think it was 32 note cards that we had labeled in as to when the action happened chronologically within the story, and then in what order they were going to be posted. I don't know why we did that, because it didn't actually make a difference when it happened in the story.
Not a lot. I mean,
so
that was
actually caused like 3 hours of extra work.
That was before we knew
Yeah.
what it was going to be, so we were just like, hey, maybe it'll be cool if we can have people put these in the right order or something, but we never actually did that.
So what do we use now for writing? Google Docs.
Yeah.
It's a great resource. How many dozens of docs do we have open just for any idea we think of? Just write it down. That's an important thing when you're writing. Just write it down.
Yeah.
Always. You're gonna forget.
I always wake up and have, like, in the middle of the night, and I have my phone right next to me in case I had a weird dream or something, and I write it. I've made myself start getting my phone out and writing it down on Google Docs. Like, I had this weird dream. Maybe I can make this into a 2-part video, and there's like 5 of them that are based on that.
You need to get like a waterproof cover so you can also have it in the shower too.
Oh yeah.
Because pretty much every idea for a video that we have that I hear from Troy is always prefaced with one of 2 phrases. It's either, so I had this idea before I fell asleep last night, or so I had this idea while I was in the shower yesterday. It's always one of the 2. So if you're trying to figure out, if you're looking for an idea for a project, just shower a lot and then
Sleep
almost
in the shower.
but not quite go to sleep a lot.
Sleep in the shower, yes, in the shower.
For actual scripts, we use a program called Celtx, C-E-L-T-X, and yeah.
It does all the screenwriting, formatting, and stuff for you.
So
It's free.
It makes you sound really important when you had to give it to someone who doesn't hang out with you. Like, yeah, here's our script. It's been formatted correctly.
It does have lots of features that they're slowly all putting on a cloud service you have to pay for, so we use all of the stuff that they're not doing that for.
But it is free.
Yeah.
I think it's Celtx.com, C-E-L-T-X.com.
Something like that, yeah.
We don't always write scripts. Sometimes we just have an outline on a piece of paper and like, hey, make sure you say this and, oh, you gonna try it again? Okay.
Keep going.
Okay. Sometimes we have an outline that says, hey, make sure you say this important plot point. It's on right there. The suspense is killing me for this.
they see that we don't have the PowerPoint up at all,
It's actually just a picture of us naked or something.
Yeah. We use it for inspiration.
Yeah, it's our inspiration when we say things.
I would say we use Celtic to write scripts for anything that actually has dialogue in it.
Yeah. Or when it's someone else there that's not us.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But if it's-
anytime,
yeah, but
anytime Jessica was there with us, we wanted to make sure we didn't feel like we were wasting her time. So we'd always have like scripts and be like, this is exactly what we need to do. We need to do it in this order, so we're not wasting her time or anything. But if it's just us, we're like, make sure you say this.
And if it's pretty much all action, there's really no reason to not just do it as an outline, because it's easier to read and
Yeah.
easier to keep track of everything, because then you can, plot out all of the points and what.
Yeah, if
what
it's
we need to do
just
and
action,
everything like that.
I'll make a shot list on Google Docs so I can look at it on my phone, and then we'll when we're out there shooting, we'll go down the list and say, okay, we need to do this and this and this and this at this place, and then we'll,
Unless you're doing something really weird, like in the handful of entries where we've had people teleport. I say people, mostly me, teleport around everywhere. In that case, we'd have sort of like. Not every time. I think it was really just the first time when we did it this way, where we just had like a list of shots that we got, and then we would sort of take it and be like, okay, we need to. How can we figure out some kind of order for these?
I guess it didn't work.
Oh.
I'm sure there are some people that like to stick word for word on a script, but we found that there is a really big difference between what something sounds like written down and what it sounds like when you actually start saying it, because sometimes the wording is just weird to say. Other times, you have to get the right emphasis down and everything, and it just works different. So when you're making your own thing, don't be too married to what you write, because sometimes you just have to change it.
Especially if you're writing with other people, don't be too married to what you write, because they might have an idea that's better, and don't be
afraid to cut out words.
Yeah, don't be afraid to cut out words, and don't be afraid to listen to other people's suggestions if they're better. Don't be
especially
dweeb about
if they're playing, especially if they're acting, they're playing a character. It's they are going to understand what they sound like better than you will, because that's how that person talks.
Well, yeah, typically whenever we write stuff, we will have one person will write, here's the general words I think we should say, and then we'll give it to, like, if Tim wrote something and he was in it talking, he'll give it to me, and I'll change whatever words I would say to make it sound like something I would say, and then give it back to him, make sure it's okay. Then we go out and shoot it and realize that it sounds weird when we say it out loud, and change everything again.
And we usually, with the way we write things, is Troy's writing style for dialogue is very terse and short, and my way of writing dialogue is always way too long. So we always kind of mash those two things together
To make it the right
and then sort of pick it out and even it out. It's like, it's not too short, but it's not too long either.
And then give it to me, and I break out the red pen and just delete entire paragraphs.
Yeah, or just throw it all away and be like, we need to reshoot this.
Yeah.
That only has happened a few times.
Well, in terms of me watching something and be like, we have to reshoot this entire thing, that's only happened once. There was one entry where, I don't know, it kind of felt like Melrose Place or something.
Yeah, I think you said this feels like Dawson's Creek. We need to
that
reshoot
was
this.
Dawson's Creek.
We were standing like on the edge of like a waterway, and there was wind in our hair and everything. We were just like, oh, I have an important secret.
Actually, no, it happened twice now that I think about it, because I was thinking about something different when we were at the waterway, or the spillway, shooting the part. The other one I'm thinking of was when you were in the car after the whole teleportation thing, and you drove away from me. That also happened too.
Oh
So it happened
yeah,
twice.
we had to reshoot that, and I'd already gotten a haircut by then, so the way we framed that shot, the car is blocking my entire head.
No, not that one. The one where you look like
another one.
death and you drove away.
So to bring it back to how to make a web series is don't be afraid if something just looks bad to redo the entire thing. If you have a lot of hang-ups about what you're about to post, there's probably a good reason for it, and you can probably make it better.
Just remember, I mean, if you're doing a web series like on YouTube, like we did, or do, you need to remember that when you're editing it or whatever, when you're shooting it, you need to remember that once it's on YouTube, with very rare exception, it's going to be on there forever. So if you think something could be better, you should absolutely take the time to make it better, because the short amount of time whoever's watching you is going to have to wait to see this is better than having something you're not okay with on there forever.
Right.
Like people kind of
Even
get on.
if you take the video down, someone else might have downloaded the source file and put it up themselves.
Yeah. So even if you, I forgot what I was going to say. Thanks.
Just
wait times and stuff.
Oh yeah, we get stuff about wait times between entries sometimes, and it's usually because we want to make it as good as it can be, because once it's out there, it's there. So if it's gonna add a few days onto the wait, that's okay.
So
There's a really funny picture of Tim petting a horse right
Yeah.
here, but sorry, you can't see it.
So one of the questions we get a lot is, how do we find the locations that we use? And when we were shooting Marble Hornets, a lot of it was abandoned stuff, and Alabama, just especially the part where we live, happens to have a lot of abandoned areas. Some of which we got permission, some we didn't, but we would never endorse going someplace without permission. So, you know, there were several times when we just drove around to find a place. And, you know, we don't have a whole lot of experience shooting with non-abandoned places, actually. So a lot of our locations are just wherever we happen to live. So we actually don't have a lot of experience shooting on location, with the exception of like the hotel.
Have a lot of experience with conserving power over the course of those,
Yes.
because, surprise, an abandoned building doesn't have any power outlets that work.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so we only have like one battery for
Yeah.
the camera and everything. So we shoot. You can shoot faster when you don't have any power to charge your camera with. Yeah, or running water.
Oh yeah.
So our strategy with locations is find places with working restrooms and stay local. Unless you have a specific reason, there's no reason to, you know, drive across the state.
Well, a lot of people say about something like California is it's really good for movies because there's a part of that state that is good for pretty much anything. Like you go north and it's like mountains, you go south it's like a desert. But with the exception of like a flat desert, most places have things like that you can use around you. Like we need woods and stuff, we got that. We need a parking lot, we got that. You know, it's not like you don't have to be in a place that has such varied areas, I guess.
But at the same time, it's also good to write your story to fit your environment and what you have available. You know, why did a lot of this take place in the woods? That's all we have.
We have a lot.
We have a lot of woods. Yeah.
Why is
That's a better
Why
way
is
of
there a
saying what I was trying
storyline
to
that
say.
takes place in an abandoned hospital? Because we found an abandoned hospital.
Yeah. A lot of the locations were at Marble Hornets, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're thinking of making a like desert epic, but you live in Tennessee,
A desert epic. I like that genre.
yeah, you might want to rethink your location.
Well, if you live on a non-landlocked state, which is Tennessee landlocked?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. I'm not good at geography.
Luckily, this is not a geography panel.
For some reason, I thought that like on the east
No,
corner.
just go on with what you're saying.
I mean, if you need a desert, you can use beaches too. Kind of, that's sand. Just don't point it at the ocean.
Heard it here first.
Yep.
Beaches and deserts look the same. Troy
Yes.
Wagner.
Yep.
It's just a really big oasis we're next to.
Yep.
So scheduling is our next point, and the first bullet point is, oh my God, this is the worst, in all caps.
Yeah.
Because it really is, especially the more people you work with in Birmingham,
Which is like an hour away.
and so she had all of that stuff to do, so we had to go the day before.
Sometimes it happens.
So that was our contingency plan for that time. Unless it rains, then you just schedule it another day. Try to shoot inside. That's what we learned with Marble Hornets. You know, and if you're making a series for the internet, one of the nice things about the internet is you get the kind of feedback about every aspect of your series immediately. That's something big companies actually pay a lot of money for. The downside is you get all that feedback about every aspect of your series immediately.
Yeah.
So if you're getting delayed for whatever reason, you're gonna hear about it. People are not gonna be happy. So sometimes you just have to tune that out. That's not to say you should just be like, it'll get done when it gets done. There should be, when you're trying to film something, there should be a sense of urgency.
Just remember that the internet is full of butt dweebs sometimes.
On both sides
On both
of that
sides.
YouTube window.
But that doesn't mean you should be immune to criticism, but we'll get to that later. But yeah, scheduling is hard. You just have to be flexible. The most flexible person with this schedule should be the person filming it, because you have to change for whatever you have.
Yeah. When it gets down to actually shooting it, after you schedule everything and it's time to shoot stuff, something to always remember is to give yourself plenty of time to shoot things, because shooting things for video takes way longer than you think it will every single time. Even if you've been doing it for years, we still say, oh, it won't take more than a couple hours. It'll be easy.
Something
No.
always comes up.
Something always
Sometimes
happens.
you're shooting in an abandoned school and someone's glasses go missing and it takes up 2 hours to not find them, and you have to extend your shoot a day. That's nobody's fault. It just happens.
Well, granted, I think when that happened, we would have had to extend it a day anyway.
Probably.
Because it was,
it deleted the chance of getting
yeah,
it done.
that was when we were shooting 86, so it was a very, that was all shot on Wednesday too.
Get up early.
2 days.
That's an important
Oh
thing
yeah,
in shooting.
we just said it was shot over 2 days. But yeah, also in that same vein, before you get there, if you can, depending upon people's schedule, you should rehearse as best you can, because usually, although when you're rehearsing, most of the time, it's going to end up being better when the cameras are rolling. But that doesn't mean you should just assume that it's going to be fine when the cameras are rolling, because it could be better.
And not necessarily when the camera is rolling as much as when you're in the actual location is a lot easier, especially for people like us, because we're not like trained actors or anything like that. So, we rehearse as best we can, but it does flow much better once we're actually at the location and we can, really get a feel for exactly how it's going to feel like and how it's going to play out.
It's a lot easier to get in the right headspace when you're actually surrounded by abandoned, dilapidated buildings.
Yeah.
When you're in your bedroom, it doesn't really have the same impact on you.
Yeah. Which entry was it when you were confessing stuff to Jay?
It was 66, I think.
Okay, yeah, that one, we rehearsed a little bit, and then once we got there, it made it a lot easier for that. We just kept getting interrupted by people wandering through the abandoned place that we didn't know.
Well, it was that one, and then 59, which is the one where we have sort of the shouting match in the parking lot, which it took us several days to shoot it just because we kept having to rehearse it at the location, because that was what worked best. Like we had to redo it like 3 or 4 times before we finally got it right.
So you got to punch me lots of times.
Surprise, acting's hard.
That was another
It's
one.
harder than I thought it would be.
That was another one of those cases where we got out there, we started filming, we rehearsed and everything, and then we decided we needed another day of filming to get it the way we wanted. All about being flexible.
Yep.
And it's really important, even though you might not get your best stuff until you're actually out there, to rehearse before, because if you're in some place you might not necessarily be allowed to be, you need to move as fast as you can. Even though it'll take longer than you think it will, you still need to be moving fast.
It'll take longer, but keep your pace up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also, Tim made a note on this: did not bring coffee to an abandoned building with no working plumbing. You added that to that. Yeah.
That might be the most important point in this entire presentation.
Yeah.
Now for some tech stuff, Troy.
People always ask me what camera we use for Marble Hornets. I guess we have to say what camera we did use for Marble Hornets. Weird. It is a Sony HDR SR5, and there's a picture of it, but you can't see it, but
You've
it's
seen
out
it.
there. Yeah,
It's
you've
on
seen
the
it.
series.
Yeah. It's really old.
I bought it when I was a sophomore in college, which was many years ago.
It says freshman on the screen. Did you
Wasn't
lie?
I a freshman?
Yeah. It was like 7 years ago.
It was like 7 years ago, and it was kind of outdated at that point. So it's a very old camera, and I would not recommend buying it. But people always ask me which one it is, so that's the one we use. And we were constantly afraid of breaking it, but wow, we did it.
Yeah.
We made it. We made it. One camera for the entire
5 years.
5 years. That camera, although it did start to have little things about
It has
it.
its own idiosyncrasies.
Yeah.
The shutter doesn't close anymore.
Yeah. Also, it has the same handling noise whenever you shake it. It has that noise, even though it's not supposed to be the same camera. Sometimes it has that noise. That always bothered me. As far as editing goes, season 1 and 2 in their entirety were edited on Sony Vegas Platinum 9.
Vegas
which-
Movie Studio, which is
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like the prosumer version of Vegas, which is Sony's editing software. It's good for an entry level type thing. Did the lights keep changing on us?
Yes.
Okay. I just making sure I wasn't going
They gotta
crazy.
do something to keep people interested. Keep people awake.
I would highly recommend Vegas for if you want to get into video editing. That's a great thing to start with. It's not super powerful, and it has a lot of weird things about it, but it's like, usually you can find it for about 60, 50 bucks. At like Best Buy sometimes. I think I bought that one at Best Buy when we first started.
I think it's gone
Now,
up quite a bit now, actually.
has it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's
I
gone
had
past
to look at the new
$100.
version, and it was like $120 now.
Oh, maybe you can get older versions.
Maybe.
They're all pretty much the same. And then for season 3, it was all edited on Adobe Premiere Pro CS 5.5. We use Creative Cloud now, though, for other stuff. But all of Marble Hornets was still edited on that program. There's a screenshot here of one of the timelines for Marble Hornets that looks really complicated and scary, but
There you go.
There you go.
There are lots of layers.
Really hard. Yeah.
Sometimes it's simple, sometimes it is not.
We get asked how long it takes to edit Marble Hornets video, and it depends entirely upon how complicated it is. But usually it doesn't take more than 3 days. It usually takes 1, 2, or 3 days, typically.
And after you've, scheduled, written, shot, everything,
What
it's
happens
time to upload it to the internet.
Wow.
Just, can you read that little screenshot on that slide up one?
Oh, yeah. After you upload it to YouTube, sometimes it says, "We detected your video may be shaky. Would you like us to fix that?" We get that every single
I wonder why.
I don't know.
I don't get it.
I'm always tempted to click yes and see what happens.
You can upload a special edition where you do click that button every time, just, have it all go through again.
Yeah. Once you upload it on the internet, you kind of already touched on that.
You get that instantaneous, unfiltered, honest feedback, which is both good and soul-crushing.
We do have comments on YouTube disabled for us, but
That was mostly a
artistic choice, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we knew the fans or the audience we were filming it for at the beginning, the Something Awful that kind of bled into like 4chan and stuff like that. We knew the type of commenters they would be, so we didn't want that to take away from everything else. So we just went ahead and nipped that in the bud off the bat.
The very first comment we ever got was a vampire.
Yeah. And after that, we were like, well, turn off the comments. You can't get any better than that.
The internet, it is something. I had something to say about the internet, but I forgot it.
I was going to make an internet joke, but I forgot what it was. It was really good, though.
So something that I don't know that we take pride in is just, some people have asked us how much we've spent on Marble Hornets throughout the entire series, and I would say probably around $1,500 for the entire 5 years. A lot of that, 250 of that was for a GoPro, and then
That wasn't actually our money, though.
but I lumped that in there.
Okay. We didn't steal it or anything.
That is how much Marble Hornets
It wasn't
cost.
our money that bought it.
And then, you could argue it was ours. Then Also, hotel stays for the hotel shots, that was a significant portion. Then everything else is just gas and snacks.
props here and there.
Yeah.
The thing we do to create the operator costs a little bit, and yeah, I probably wouldn't even say 1,500, but I guess that's being.
That is the uppermost.
Yeah,
and
the most.
I think that's going to be the case for a lot of people that are making stuff for YouTube.
Having your characters wear your own clothes helps.
Yeah. So
Should've worn this shirt.
one benefit from doing no budget filmmaking is it basically necessitates creativity. You have to work your way around certain shortcomings. You know, we were able to do found footage with a crappy camera because that's what we had.
That's what
and
the character
what the
used
character
to
would
use,
have. So that was a huge benefit. If we were trying to do this, you know, not found footage, it would probably be a lot more expensive. So it's nice, you know, there are definitely downsides. The fact that you have no money is a pretty big downside. So there are things you might want to do, but you just can't. And sometimes you can't, you know, jerry-rig a solution. You just don't do that.
But sometimes the solution you come up with instead of that one ends up being better.
Yeah.
Which is something we found to be the case multiple times.
Yeah. So we never like to tell people to write to your limitations. Write what you want to write, and then figure out what you have to do to either make it happen or how you can make a nice alternative. And you get pretty good at that when you have no money.
When you're doing something over 5 years.
So, you know, if any of you were in the last panel before this, when they were talking a little bit, giving advice how to make it, and one thing we get asked.
Wait, make it as in make something,
it,
or like
make it,
become popular?
Become popular.
Okay, Hollywood make it.
And there's really not a formula.
If there was, everyone would.
Right. You know, you'll get people with wildly different ideas on how to do things, and you'll have things that break the mold that get popular. Because I think we were in a panel once, it was a roundtable discussion with a bunch of other people that had made YouTube stuff, and the general consensus at that table was you should never make a video over 3 minutes long. Well, Marble Hornets goes over 3 minutes quite a bit, and you know, despite that, we've stayed pretty popular. I do think that's a good idea.
There's no hard and fast rules,
Yeah.
but like you said, don't be afraid to cut things.
Yeah,
I
I
also
think
have a
that's
single cat in Marble Hornets, so we already sort of lucked out with that one.
Yeah, I think there are definitely good rules. You know, you don't want to make stuff that's too long.
Don't make it long,
because the internet does have a short attention span. But you know, if you want to make a long video, just make a long video, because that doesn't necessarily keep you from being popular.
If it's what's necessary, make a long video.
But one point that the guys in the last panel brought up that is like the most important rule of YouTube is do not do it to become popular. Do not do it to make money, because you probably aren't going to. Marble Hornets did not become self-sufficient until like 3 years in.
I guess the thing to say is don't do it for money, and don't expect to make money, but you know.
Yeah, you should be doing it because it's fun. Because it is fun.
Well, if you want to expect to make money, don't think you can quit your job immediately, like when you put your first episode or whatever out.
It was even weirder for us because we never advertised our series. It's all been word of mouth, and that's probably the best way you are going to spread popularity or get more popular is by having something that people want to share with their friends. And you know, it's beneficial for us because everybody loves scaring their friends.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of just word of mouth advertising. And you know, if you advertise too much, people will resent that. And
We've officially advertised once, I think.
We bought a season 1 DVD ad on DeviantArt once, and no one even clicked on it.
Yeah.
So
It not on purpose at least. Maybe a couple of accidentals. There are definitely some things that I probably refuse to watch because I see their advertisements so much. I'm just like, no, now just to spite you, I'm not watching it. So you don't want to be too pushy with that. You know, there's no hard and fast rule that will get you popular on the internet. It's just, you should make something you're proud of, because it is hard to hide good content.
That's not to say that it's one of that
Yeah.
good content will always be seen, but it's
throw more buzzwordy catchphrases. It's like you might need to redefine success. Like if your
Yeah.
idea is that you're not going to be successful until you hit 1 million subscribers,
we're not successful at
We're
all.
not successful.
We're not even halfway successful.
so you should just be putting up stuff that you're proud of.
Yeah.
And be happy with that.
Do it because you love it.
Yeah. So we
Make it a labor of love. I was gonna say we've got about
20
rewriting
minutes or
questions.
so we'll
Yeah.
take some questions from you guys.
There's a microphone up here, if you guys want to come up to that. If you have any
If you're close enough to the front. Oh, okay. Hi.
Well, there you
Hi.
go.
I just want to know, have you gathered the notes?
Have we what?
Got the notes.
The
Got
notes.
some notes. Oh, like people writing.
Slender's coming.
Oh,
okay. Gotcha.
We have had people to answer that non-question, which we actually have had people do that.
There's a question. There's a question mark on it.
Yeah.
It was technically a question, yeah.
I guess.
I never have.
If you're close enough to the front, you can just shout at us, I guess,
Yeah.
or come up to there. Yeah.
Or if you don't feel like it.
Do you guys ever experience a burnout with your writing, or you hit the creative block or the creative wall? I mean, I guess it's not just writing, but just filmmaking in general. And when you hit that wall, what is it that you do to bounce back from that?
We absolutely suffer burnout. That's the entire reason there were season breaks. I think between season 1 and 2, there was like 7 months. There was actually a pretty big break of like 3 months in the middle of season 1, I think.
Well, we moved. And
We
stuff.
moved, and then it was hard to get the motivation. So yeah, you just gotta take a break sometimes,
Yeah.
or do something entirely different.
That's kind of what our other channel, Troy Has a Camera, where we do lots of comedy videos and things, is sort of whenever we are feeling kind of burnout or kind of blocked, it's something we can make, some place where we can make something that's completely different and sort of get that off our chest,
Something that's
sort of.
not so serious.
Yeah.
Usually something that we think is funny.
Yeah, especially with a show like this, when you have to stay in that serious mindset for so long, it's like you got to take a break from that. It gets stressful.
Another thing we've done, this is more recent, is film multiple things ahead of time, so you can have a little bit of break to focus on other things. In our case, it's mainly just we aren't going to have time to shoot, the next couple of weeks. Let's get stuff ready to be posted. But yeah.
Was there ever a time that you wrote yourselves into a corner?
Yes.
Did you ever have to dump any footage that you shot because you wrote it into a corner, or did you find a way out of it?
We've had to dump footage before, but it's not really common to do that. There's been, I think in season 2 we had a straight up deleted entry that we never actually posted because we didn't like it. We do write ourselves into a corner quite a lot.
But sometimes it's led to things that. Sometimes it ends up leading to things that end up making it better. For instance, near the beginning of season 3, there was an episode where it was Alex and Tim and Brian are talking about we're looking for where's the location for the abandoned school or whatever, and so Tim says, oh, well, I know this place. And then we realized after we uploaded it that wasn't consistent with a few entries before that near the end of season 2, whenever Brian is asking Alex how they found this place, and the story that he gives him wasn't consistent. And so we were like, oh, what are we gonna do? But then we remembered that there's this other building that's nearby it. So we made that the one that Tim was referring to. And so then that entry where they're exploring that bigger hospital, and the one after that when Tim is going between the two of them in the dark with the night vision on, which I ended up really liking quite a bit personally. But
It wasn't fun for you to shoot because you were just like, here, Tim, run through this abandoned hospital in complete darkness.
All of those 2 entries were pretty much just because of a 1-sentence continuity error. So there are ways to fix these things if you could really just sort of run through as many possibilities as you can.
There's ways to get out of any corner. It just might take a month to figure out.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Why do you think Slender is so terrifying to gamers?
To gamers specifically, or just people? Okay.
Or I guess you're talking about the game itself, Slender?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as a
I don't
character
know.
in general, I think part of it is just the fact that it's kind of a blank slate character in a way.
It's also a game where you are always on the run. You don't have any.
People don't like being chased by things.
Yeah. So when we were writing for The Arrival, that was something to keep in mind too, to make the character feel as helpless as possible while still being able to do stuff. For those of you who don't know, we actually did do writing for some of the story on Slender: The Arrival. I think they recently came out with some DLC that didn't use stuff from us, but
I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. I'm a big baby, so I'm scared of everything.
Joseph gets scared when we're watching funny movies and there's a sudden noise.
Yeah, I'll jump.
He's like,
Jumpy guy?
yeah. It's okay to line up at the microphone if you want to. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, kind of going on the question before last, when you're kind of writing, do you write a season at a time, or like do you kind of get like the overarching plot of that season, or do you have you had like the entire series planned in a certain direction, or how do you kind of write through that?
We sort of had a season outline with sort of the important points filled in. I've kind of been saying is we knew the what, we didn't know the how. So it's like we knew what we wanted to do, but we kind of let the writing sort of unfold on its own as to how those things were going to happen.
Not something I would recommend.
Yeah.
Definitely would like to have a better idea immediately before you start filming.
We're good at writing beginnings and we're good at writing endings. Stuff in between we're not as good at writing.
I mean, that approach I think is all right, because you'll have this plan, but then as you're going, you might think of something better and change it or tweak it or something like that.
Sometimes a small change you make actually ends up having ridiculous ramifications, like we found out. I mean, yeah, it's okay to not to have a question mark in the middle, because that kind of leads to something that was better than what you originally thought.
Yeah, I guess it's not that I wouldn't recommend it. It's just
it's difficult.
Yeah, be aware going in that if you choose to do that, it is much more difficult than just writing everything at the beginning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You mentioned not being immune to criticism, but what's some criticism that you got that you found especially constructive or useful over the course of
I mean, as long as someone doesn't immediately jump down our throats at the beginning, like you guys are trash and everything like that, I think you can, even in those, you can find valid criticisms.
How can we not be trash to you?
Yeah, it's just a lot harder. And you can't try to make everyone happy, but
You're not going to make 100% of the people happy 100% of the time.
But at the same time, you also can't assume that I automatically know what is better. All of these people don't know what they're talking about. It's like there is a lot to listen to there.
There are a few people we have met over the years of doing this. We obviously will not name names, that definitely feel like they are infallible in what they've created and are completely immune to criticism. Or I think this is almost worse, will not listen unless someone more successful tells them something, which it's very rare to have your peers give you hard criticisms. I don't know, it feels
People
awkward.
that surround themselves with people that say they're great.
Yeah.
It's not the best way to improve.
And it is my personal feeling that their work suffers greatly for that. You should be open to criticism, because
Especially on the internet.
just because that person isn't making something or isn't making something that is as popular as what yours does not mean they have bad ideas.
They're still a consumer of what you're making.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing I think you can say when someone criticizes you is, well, I don't see you making anything better.
Yeah.
Like that's not what they're saying.
I hate it when people defend us by saying that.
Yeah.
Because well, one, we don't need white knights. We're big boys. We can take criticism. But two, yeah, it's a fallacious argument.
Yeah.
Just because you don't make something doesn't mean you don't have good opinions.
Were you asking if there's a specific criticism we got that we took to heart?
Yes.
That's kind of what I was.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll ramble there. I think we definitely caught a lot of flack for walking in the woods too much. and that is something we tried to tone down in season 3 considerably. And we got asked, I think at our Q&A yesterday, if we could change something about entries, and Tim said, yeah, we
Trim that up a little bit.
Trim that up a little bit.
See, we took our own advice. We took things out that weren't working.
Yeah. So that's one I can think of just off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. It was mostly stuff in season 2 where we were trying to figure out like what kind of pacing we wanted. We were trying to experiment in season 2 mostly with pacing and storyline and all that stuff, and we kind of combined what we learned from season 2 into season 3. So people telling us that helped us to figure out the pacing that we needed in season 3, which I think I liked season 3 the most myself. So because it was that right combination of story and action, I guess.
I wanted to ask, how does the process of writing the script go? Do you write the story first and the script, or how does that work?
We almost always have the idea of the action of the entry in mind when we're writing the script.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we've ever written scripts before.
We'll always have some kind of outline, and then
I guess there are cases where we have the outline of what needs to be said, and then we'll write the action around that. But I'd say that's the exception rather than the rule.
We have a giant Google Doc that has just kind of the overarching plot points and everything that we were talking about, and we'll go entry by entry kind of and write out the action of it in a little more detail, and sometimes we'll put suggested dialogue, like Tim says something like, "Oh, you're stupid," and Jay says something like, "No, you are," and then we'll take that and put that argument into better words on the actual script.
And we'll have sort of a, vague isn't the right word, but we'll have like the action listed in a kind of general sense, because we can't really plan it out until we're actually at the location and we see like, okay, well, if we want them to run through this one door and through the second door, there's only one door in this room, so we need to figure out something else to do instead of that, or tweak whatever action that we have, or make it to suit whatever the location is.
One example of that is when Hoodie goes out the window and has a little boo-boo at the bottom.
Butt boo-boo.
When we were writing that was definitely more, I don't know, like Hoodie was not climbing out of that window when we wrote.
We were like, Tim throws him out.
Yeah. Then we got there and we realized there's a cross beam going across this that makes that impossible. So
and the windows themselves are a lot smaller than we thought they were.
So we had to write around that when we got there.
Although we did shoot throwing him out the window at one point.
Yeah, that might be something that shows up later.
In the Joseph made a wooden hoodie, or in his legs.
Yeah, and there was some debris. I don't know. There's some
pieces of wood.
Yeah, and some nails around. So I was like, well,
Brian, take off your pants and give us your shoes. We're making you with your legs to go out the window.
Legs with feet on them.
That was the funniest thing.
There were a couple of takes.
If that's not something that needs to go on the DVD, I don't know what is.
That's going on the DVD.
Oh, that's absolutely.
That's our commercial for the season 3 DVD. If you want to see Brian's pants flying through a window.
There's at least one take.
Who doesn't?
There's at least one take that doesn't look like absolute garbage, but that's not the one you'll see on the DVD. You'll see the best one.
You need to have all of them.
They throw him out the window and the legs would like turn backwards and like a shoe would fly off. It was so funny. We spent like 3 hours doing that. And it's okay, it didn't work, but we tried.
Yeah, we had permission to be there, so we didn't have to get in and get out.
Yeah, we worked around our limitations and found an alternative solution.
So basically what we're saying is, if you don't know how to work around something, take off your friend's pants and put wood in them and put the shoes on them. Yeah, that's how it works. Marble Hornets, take off your friend's pants. That's the sequel. Yeah. So as soon as you start talking about Brian taking off his pants, people, they're like, oh,
listen.
Gonna get the papers. Oh, goodness gracious.
Do you have any more questions?
Do you have any more questions?
Feel free to come up to the mic.
I see you over there, by the way. I see you standing there. So what? I don't see you. What's going on?
Before you decided that that Hoodie was Brian, who would play Hoodie?
It was.
I'm kind of proud of how we did that, because there was a time when we were not super positive on who we wanted Hoodie to be exactly, or if we were going to show who he was at any point. So what we did was, because
we kept changing who would be in it.
we kept changing the actor who would be in the hoodie, so there would be a consistent body type exactly.
So that people couldn't automatically figure it out just by body shape.
I think every single one of us have been Hoodie at some point.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was only Brian, I'd say 3 entries or so.
After we ironed out that we wanted it to be Brian, we started emulating his walk though. Because Brian, I mean, it's not a weird walk, it's a Brian.
It's a Brian walk. You kind of walk with your shoulders.
And I'm proud because some people actually picked up on that.
And some people were like, oh, it walks like Brian. It's like, no, it's Tim, but thank you.
That's acting.
Acting.
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Don't be afraid.
We kind of have to go into lightning round here. Just shout something out.
Hey! We can't go off of that one, so.
Yeah, I can't really elaborate on hello.
If you don't have any specific general filmmaking questions, if
I like
you have
that
any
we got
questions
one.
about.
We got one series. Yeah.
I wouldn't say serious. I'm never serious.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine.
What actually provoked y'all to make this? I don't know if you've answered this question before.
Provoked us?
Yes, provoked you.
The internet. The internet.
Was it him?
I mean, the thread that Slenderman was created in, about a week later, we saw it and
We were bored, and
It seemed like a good idea.
it seemed like a good idea at the time. Yeah, Marvel Hornets seemed like a good idea at the time. Take your friend's pants off. Actually, the other way around. Take your friend's pants off. It would seem like a good idea at the time. Yeah. Hi.
Which was your favorite character to make or write?
I don't know, Maskey was pretty fun because it was like writing for an animal a lot of the time.
It was fun because Maskey didn't talk. Also, Hoodie was pretty fun because Hoodie didn't talk either. Well, I guess Maskey did talk some, just made grunts, but Hoodie never talked.
It's like the masked fella was the animal side, and then the Hood was more of
The brain.
the thinker.
Yeah, I would say, but as far as people who talk, probably Tim. I like Tim a lot.
I would actually say Jay in terms of people who talk because it was a
love
hero
Jay.
in a very different sense. It wasn't the action hero or anything. It
Wasn't an action hero really good at anything, but was trying, gosh darn
was
it.
trying his hardest. It didn't work out for him, but he tried his hardest.
Yeah.
As far as writing dialogue goes, a lot of the time we wrote the dialogue for our own characters just because it felt more natural. As far as
There's large parts of us in each of the characters.
Yeah, as far as writing the actions that the characters do, I would also say Tim, just because I could sit there and go, okay, here's a list of things that I am willing to do action-wise. Let's see how many of these we can find a reason for. Like, yeah, I'm willing to jump in the river.
Yeah.
And thus an entry was born.
And, it seemed like a good idea.
I think we have time for one more quick question, if anyone has anything.
Where's your favorite location to film?
Our favorite location to film? They all sucked after a while to go to, but
Yeah, I would say the school.
the school, because we got legit permission to be there and we didn't have to worry about.
You got all the advantages of shooting in a cool abandoned location without any of the stress.
Yeah.
I would definitely have to agree with that.
Thank you so much for coming out to
Yes,
our panel,
thank
guys.
you.